For the latest on the 77th United Nations General Assembly, I'm joined live from New York by VOA UN correspondent Margaret Besheer. Margaret, good to see you today. And, the U.S. president traditionally addresses the United Nations General Assembly on the first day. That didn't happen, but he did address the UNGA today. What were the takeaway messages from his speech?
Yes, he was delayed by a day because of Queen Elizabeth's funeral, but he had a full house this morning in the General Assembly, and he reacted straight away to the news out of the Kremlin that President Putin is calling up 300,000 reserve military members for his war in Ukraine, and also his threat to use nuclear weapons. President Biden said that Putin made overt nuclear threats against Europe in what he said was reckless disregard for Russia's responsibilities under the nuclear non-proliferation regime. He said, Putin is also planning for referenda in occupied parts of Ukraine, and President Biden called those sham referenda to annex parts of Ukraine, and he said it's an extremely significant violation of the UN Charter. He said this war is about extinguishing Ukraine's right to exist as a state, plain and simple, he said, and Ukraine's right to exist as a people. The United States has supported Ukraine throughout the 7-month war, and he has said that the United States has given more than $25 billion so far in military, economic, and humanitarian assistance to Ukraine, and that would continue. And he also welcomed the UN Turkish brokered grain deal to get the grain out of Ukraine, and he said it should be extended. And he was very clear in saying the United States wants to see this war end. He said, like you, the U.S. wants this war to end on just terms, on terms we all signed up for. And he said you can't seize another nation's territory by force, and the only country standing in the way of the end of the war is Russia.
Margaret, several African leaders have also addressed the UNGA beginning yesterday. They will be continuing, but we have shown a couple of, messages. We have Macky Sall, we just talked about him, Tshisekedi and Kagame. But what seems to be the underlying message for the continent from the African leaders?
Well, actually, President Buhari kicked off this morning's annual debate. He was the first speaker, and he said that the war in Ukraine is kind of preventing discussion of other issues, pushing other issues to the sidelines. And so this, things need to come back to normal so the world can deal with other pressing issues like famine, like climate change. You mentioned several of the ones. You played bites from the leaders who've spoken. Zambia is on the stage right now, and we're going to hear very soon from Kenya's new president, William Ruto. We're expecting to hear from Madagascar's president. Libya's presidential council leaders coming up today. There's actually more than a dozen, I counted, African leaders speaking today, most of them coming up yet still. Namibia, Ghana, Gabon, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, South Africa, the list goes on. So we'll have more for you on that tomorrow.
Margaret, looking forward to that.